Imagine your wife, after 7 years of marriage, calmly looks you in the eyes and says, "I'm spending the weekend with another man, just a few days, and when I'm back, everything will be like it was." What would you do? Forgive her? Accept it? But the man in this story chose a very different path. When the person you love destroys everything with a single sentence, who are you then? A victim, or someone who rises and takes control? Hello, my friend. I'm so glad you stopped by my channel. If it's your first time here, don't forget to subscribe and like this video, as every like truly inspires me. Please tell me which city and country you watch this video from. Now, let's get started. My name is Michael, and up until a week ago I believed my marriage was solid. Not without its imperfections, of course. No relationship is flawless. But I thought we had something built on trust, respect, and years of shared history. Never did I imagine that a single conversation could shatter everything so completely. It happened on a Friday evening. After an exhausting day at work, all I wanted was to come home, unwind, and let go of the fatigue clinging to me. But the moment I stepped inside, I sensed something was wrong. My wife, Bridget, was sitting on the couch, one leg draped over the other, a glass of wine delicately cradled in her hand. Her expression was unfamiliar, not angry, not sorrowful, but something controlled, intentional. The air felt heavy, charged with an unease that made my pulse quicken before she even spoke. "Hey," I greeted her cautiously, loosening my tie. "Everything all right?" She gestured toward the cushion beside her, silently inviting me to sit. I hesitated, a sinking feeling settling in my gut, but I did as she asked. She inhaled deeply, as if preparing for what she was about to say, and then the words left her lips. "I want to spend the weekend with another man." At first, I laughed, an instinctive, nervous reaction, because surely this was some kind of joke. But she didn't laugh. She didn't even smirk. She simply watched me with those detached, unreadable eyes. "What?" My voice wavered slightly, my mind struggling to make sense of what I had just heard. "I've been thinking about this for some time," she explained, swirling the wine in her glass as if discussing an ordinary weekend plan. "I need something different, something exhilarating." My stomach twisted. This couldn't be real. It had to be some kind of cruel test. "Are you serious?" The words barely made it past my tightening throat. She exhaled, exasperation flickering in her gaze, as though I was the one being unreasonable. "Michael, I love you, but I don't want to reach the end of my life filled with regrets. I need to explore, to know what else is out there. It's just one weekend. No obligations, no consequences. And after that, everything can go back to the way it was." I stared at her, this woman I had devoted 7 years to, casually presenting this as if it were a minor request. And the worst part? She didn't seem ashamed. There was no guilt, no hesitation. If anything, she appeared relieved, as if she had unburdened herself of something long overdue. I wanted to shout, to demand an explanation, to remind her of the vows we had made and the life we had built together. But the words refused to come. Instead, I sat there, numb, my heartbeat hammering in my ears. "I know this is a lot to take in," she murmured, reaching for my hand. I recoiled. For the briefest moment, irritation flickered across her face before she masked it with another weary sigh. "Michael, this doesn't have to change anything between us." A hollow laugh escaped me. "You actually believe that?" She didn't answer. Instead, she emptied the last of her wine, set the glass aside, and rose to her feet. "I've already made arrangements," she said, her tone disturbingly casual. "I leave tomorrow morning." And that was it. No apology, no second thoughts, just a simple, matter-of-fact statement. I watched her retreat upstairs, leaving me alone in the oppressive silence of our living room. I had never felt so insignificant, so invisible. But as the hours crawled by, my initial shock gave way to something sharper, something colder. A realization settled over me. I was done being the reliable husband she took for granted. She wanted a weekend of adventure? Fine. By the time she returned, she wouldn't recognize the life she had so carelessly abandoned. Sleep was impossible. Every time I closed my eyes, her words echoed in my mind, poisoning me with their indifference. I need to experience something different. She had said it so effortlessly, as if our years together were disposable, as if I were nothing more than a worn-out relic she was eager to set aside. The betrayal wasn't just in her decision, it was in the expectation that I would simply accept it, that I would remain the patient, faithful man waiting in the wings. By sunrise, something within me had shifted. I wasn't just devastated. I was livid. That morning, Bridget packed her bags with the nonchalance of someone preparing for a weekend retreat. Not a trace of doubt crossed her features. She even pressed a light kiss to my cheek before walking out the door. "You'll see," she said breezily. "This will be good for us." I didn't reply. I couldn't. I merely stood there, watching as she rolled her suitcase down the driveway, climbed into an Uber, and disappeared from sight. For a moment, the silence in the house pressed against my chest. My wife had just left me behind to pursue a fleeting thrill, and I was expected to wait for her return? No, absolutely not. That was the moment I made my choice. Bridget had taken her path, and now I was taking mine. I refused to be the heartbroken man left drowning in grief. I refused to be the husband she expected to return to, as if nothing had changed. By the time she came back, everything would be unrecognizable. I stepped into our bedroom, the space we had shared for years, and took it in. I imagined her returning after her reckless escapade, assuming she could slip back into the life she had so easily discarded. She had no idea what awaited her. I reached for my phone and made a series of calls, first to a moving company, then to a locksmith. By noon, they arrived. Standing in the doorway, I gave a simple directive. Take everything from the master bedroom. Leave the bed. Get rid of it. I don't care where it goes. Just make sure it's gone. They wasted no time. Every last item, every remnant of her presence was hauled away, leaving no trace behind. When the job was done, the room stood empty, stripped of identity, just as I was when she tore everything apart with a few casual words. Then came the locksmith. I had him replace every lock, the front door, the back door, even the garage. He didn't ask questions, just gave a curt nod and got to work. By the time the sun dipped below the horizon, I stood in what might as well have been an entirely different house. The place that once reflected our shared life was now a blank canvas, and I wasn't stopping there. Pouring a drink, I settled onto the lone remaining piece of furniture and pulled out my phone. I had never entertained the idea of dating apps before, always believing in deep connections, in love that grew over time. But that version of me was gone. I wasn't searching for love. I was searching for something different. Minutes later, I found her. Cassandra. A name as striking as the woman herself. Raven black hair, piercing green eyes, and a smirk that radiated effortless confidence. A few messages passed between us, and before an hour was up, she was already on her way. The knock came, cutting through the newfound silence of my home. I took a last look around. Bridget had left thinking she held all the power, certain I'd be here, drowning in regret, desperate for her return. She had no idea. By the time she came back, she'd be the one staring at the ruins of her past life. Smirking, I pulled open the door. "Hi, Cassandra," I said, my voice steady, tinged with something new and unshakable. She stepped in without hesitation, claiming the space like she had always belonged. No awkward greetings, no meaningless small talk. Her sharp gaze swept over the room, assessing, as if it were already hers. "Nice place," she murmured, shrugging off her jacket and carelessly tossing it over the arm of the couch. I poured 2 drinks, my hands steady, my mind eerily clear. Just yesterday, My wife had sat on that very couch and told me she needed to feel another man's touch. Now, another woman sat there instead, her name already fading into insignificance. Cassandra watched me, tilting her head, amusement flickering in her expression. "Tell me something," she mused. "A man like you, why is he suddenly single?" A short, dry laugh escaped me. "Who said I'm single?" Her eyebrow arched slightly. "Oh?" I leaned back, taking a slow sip. "My wife took the weekend to broaden her horizons," I said smoothly. "So I figured I'd do the same." For a moment, I braced for judgment, for some tired cliché about revenge or bitterness. But Cassandra only chuckled, leaning in slightly. "I like that," she murmured, her voice playful, yet edged with something sharper. "A man who knows how to take control." Control. That was the key. For the first time since Bridget shattered our marriage, I wasn't just reacting. I wasn't drowning in her choices. I was making my own, and I had no plans to stop. By Sunday evening, the house no longer felt like a graveyard of betrayal. It was something else entirely. Mine. Every last piece of Bridget's belongings had been removed, the bedroom walls repainted, the sheets changed, the furniture rearranged. No more abandoned hair ties, no lingering trace of her perfume. She had been erased. Cassandra stayed the whole weekend, not because I needed her to, not because I feared being alone, but because I wanted her there, because for once, I deserved someone who actually wanted me, not just the comfort I provided. Then, at precisely 6:07 p.m., my phone buzzed. Bridget. I let it ring, again and again. Finally, I picked up, allowing the silence to stretch just long enough to unsettle her. "Already?" My voice was calm, detached, a beat of hesitation. I just got home." Then, more urgently, "The front door, my key isn't working." A slow smile played on my lips as I swirled the whiskey in my glass. "That's odd," I mused. "Maybe because it's not your home anymore." Silence. "Michael," she whispered, her voice unsteady. "What? What do you mean?" I exhaled, savoring the moment. "I mean, you made your choice. Now, I've made mine. You wanted something new? So did I." A disbelieving laugh crackled through the line, harsh, humorless. "You're being ridiculous," she snapped. "I told you this was just a weekend. It didn't mean anything." I glanced at Cassandra, who watched me with knowing amusement. "And yet," I said slowly, "you expected me to sit here waiting for you, like some obedient little husband?" Silence. Then, the futile scrape of a key jamming into a lock that would never turn. "Open the damn door, Michael." I took my time draining my glass before rising, making my way toward the entrance. When I finally pulled the door open, she stood there, suitcase in hand, her face pale, emotions warring between disbelief and fury. Her eyes flicked past me, locking onto Cassandra, who leaned casually against the staircase, draped in a silk robe, the one Bridget had once assumed would always be hers. Her breath caught. Who the hell is she?" I smirked. Something was off. Her lips parted, but the words never surfaced. Her gaze swept across the room, and a slow, creeping understanding settled over her. It was different. This was not the home she had left behind. The wedding photos that had once lined the walls were nowhere to be seen. The furniture, the decorations, even the scent lingering in the air, all of it foreign, unfamiliar. This place was no longer hers, and it never would be again. Bridget remained frozen in the entryway, her fingers tightening around the handle of her suitcase. Each breath she took was shallow, uneven, as though she were holding herself together by the thinnest thread. I watched as the realization played across her face, the slow, dawning awareness that everything had changed. Her perfume still lingered in the air, once a scent that had wrapped around me like comfort. Now, it felt intrusive, a relic of something that no longer belonged. Her eyes darted between me and Cassandra, who stood poised on the staircase before settling on the vacant spaces where she had once existed in this home. This isn't funny, Michael, she finally managed, her voice unsteady. Leaning lazily against the doorframe, I crossed my arms. Not a joke. Her face paled. Gone? What do you mean gone? I moved everything, I said with a shrug. New bedroom, new locks, new life. My lips curled into a smirk. You wanted a break, didn't you? Well, I figured I'd make the most of mine. For the first time since she had walked out that door, something within her cracked. She exhaled shakily, her voice barely above a whisper. You're not serious. This isn't how it was supposed to happen. I raised an eyebrow. Oh? And how exactly was it supposed to happen, Bridget? Were you expecting to return and find me exactly where you left me? Waiting, heartbroken? She swallowed hard. It wasn't meant to be like this, Michael. I let out a dry, humorless chuckle. You needed to try something different. Isn't that what you told me? I said, finishing her thought for her. Well, so did I. Her hands clenched into fists. You don't just replace a marriage, Michael. That made me laugh, an actual, sharp, bitter laugh. Don't you? Because that's exactly what you did, isn't it? I gestured toward her, at the suitcase still gripped in her hand. You left without hesitation, off to chase something new, leaving me behind like an afterthought. And now, you're shocked that I didn't just sit here waiting? Her mouth opened, then shut. No justification, no excuse. She had believed she controlled the situation, that she could step into another life, experiment, and return to find me unchanged, hurt, but faithful, waiting. She had miscalculated. I watched the fear settle in her eyes. Not anger, not yet. Fear. The sinking realization that she had shattered something beyond repair. I thought we were strong enough to survive this, she murmured. I scoffed. Strong enough to survive your selfishness? That's rich. Her eyes shimmered, but the sight stirred nothing in me. I had spent years being the devoted husband, the one who put her first, the one who stayed steady. That man was gone. She took a tentative step forward, her voice trembling. Michael, please. Tell me this is just some cruel joke. I exhaled slowly, my gaze drifting past her to the car still idling at the curb. I'm not joking, Bridget. My voice was quiet, steady. You made your choice, and now I've made mine. The words struck her like a physical blow. For the first time, she understood what it meant to be left behind. Her grip on the suitcase trembled as she turned sharply toward Cassandra, her voice laced with disbelief. And you? What is this? Some kind of twisted game? Cassandra's expression remained composed, her shoulders lifting in a slow shrug. Not a game, an opportunity. Bridget let out a brittle, disbelieving laugh. You think you can just step in and take my place? A smirk played at the corners of Cassandra's lips, her green eyes gleaming. Seems like I already have. Bridget looked between the two of us, then back at the house, the place that was no longer hers. Her breath hitched, fingers tightening around the handle of her suitcase. Finally, she whispered, I never thought you'd actually go through with this. I met her gaze, unwavering. That makes two of us. Then, I closed the door. The sound of it locking into place echoed through the house, final and absolute. I inhaled deeply, my hand still resting on the doorknob, my pulse thrumming beneath my skin. I had played out this moment in my mind 100 times, screaming, accusations, maybe even shattered glass. But in the end, it was simple. A door shut. A chapter ended. Cassandra's voice broke the silence. That was satisfying to watch. I turned to find her leaning against the banister, arms crossed, amusement glinting in her eyes. The dim lighting cast deep shadows over her features, making her expression all the more unreadable. Was it? I muttered. brushing past her toward the living room. I poured myself a drink, pausing before taking a slow sip. Cassandra sauntered over, sinking into the couch with the easy confidence of someone who belonged there. She really thought she had you wrapped around her little finger, she mused. Thought she could step out, explore, and waltz back in like nothing had changed. I exhaled, staring into my glass. She did. My voice was quiet, reflective. That's the worst part. She actually believed I'd wait, that I'd sit here, miserable and faithful, while she chased something new. But she had been wrong. That wasn't love, just possession in disguise. The messages started flooding in the second I shut the door. A single vibration, then another, then an unrelenting series, demanding attention. With a tired sigh, I glanced at my phone and unlocked the screen. Michael, open up. We need to talk. Just let me in. This isn't how it was supposed to go. You're making a scene over nothing. I scoffed. Blowing things out of proportion? I tilted my phone toward Cassandra, who skimmed the texts before smirking. Classic, she muttered, shaking her head. She was beginning to understand she wasn't as indispensable as she once believed. I ignored the messages, but the buzzing refused to let up. Michael, are you seriously doing this? I gave you space. Now you're just being childish. Answer me. Now. And there it was. The shift. That inevitable moment when anxiety took root, when the loss of control became undeniable. I set my phone down on the table, exhaling as I leaned back into my chair. She's never been ignored before, Cassandra observed, watching me closely. She'll have to adjust. But even as I spoke, I recognized the truth. This wasn't over. Bridget was never the type to walk away without a fight. Hours slipped by, and for a fleeting moment I allowed myself to think she had finally accepted reality. Then came the knocking. Not timid or hesitant. No, this was relentless, desperate. Cassandra and I locked eyes. She really doesn't know when to quit, she murmured. I approached the door but didn't open it, instead peering through the peephole. Bridget stood rigid on the porch, arms crossed, eyes swollen, not just from crying, but from something far deeper, something insistent. She wasn't here to talk. She was here to win. Michael, she called, her voice eerily steady. You can ignore my messages, but we both know this isn't over. I stayed silent. A sharp breath. This isn't like you. You're not the kind of man who just throws everything away. Funny, I once believed the same about her. A pause, then a shift in posture. Fine, have your little tantrum. When you finally come to your senses, you'll realize how ridiculous you're being. My jaw clenched. Tantrum. The word landed like ice in my chest. That was it. The final confirmation. She didn't regret what she had done, only that she no longer had control over me. Beside me, Cassandra whispered, She's still playing games. She was right. Bridget's voice softened, dripping with artificial sweetness. I'll be back tomorrow. You'll be thinking clearly by then. For the first time, I responded, Don't bother. A long silence. Then, a quiet yet unwavering reply. We'll see. I watched through the peephole as she finally turned and disappeared into the night, but I wasn't naive enough to believe she was truly gone. This was far from over. The next morning, I woke to the doorbell ringing in rapid, jarring succession, an insistent alarm of unwelcome persistence. I didn't need to check to know who it was. When I finally pulled the door open, there she stood, Bridget, gaunt and exhausted, desperation clinging to her like a second skin. Her voice was barely audible. I'm sorry. But her words meant nothing. It's over, I said, stepping back and closing the door. And for the first time, I felt it. Freedom. As the latch clicked into place, I knew without a doubt. I was done. This story has come to an end. No one should tolerate betrayal for the sake of keeping a relationship alive. When someone chooses to cross that line and put their own selfish desires above you, you have every right to choose yourself. Real love is built on mutual respect, not on excuses for hurtful actions. Value yourself enough to walk away from anyone who takes you for granted. And remember, if someone is willing to risk losing you, they never truly valued you in the first place. What's your opinion? Share it in the comments, my friend. And if you like this story, check out other exciting videos on my channel. I'll say goodbye until the next video. See you.